sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Are you listening?
Hello there.
I'm Darius.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. This podcast is by young people, for young people, just to talk about the things that we care about.
We're here to give you a voice, whether that's the voice of your creativity, your professionalism, or just something that you're doing that you feel needs to be spoken about.
And if you want to get in touch and actually get on this podcast, you really can.
We don't bite. I mean, we promise.
And we promise. But the real question here is, are you listening?
I mean, are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Let's just get on into the podcast.
Hello. We are back finally with another episode of the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. I'm Sam. I'm one half of the hosting duo. I'm missing my second half today. Darius is gone, but he's back later. He'll be back with another episode, I promise. You're not stuck with me for too long. So today marks the inaugural flight of our LGBTQ plus miniseries. This is a miniseries where we're diving into the history, personal experiences, advice, tips, tricks for both LGBTQ plus members and for allies. Now, this will be a couple of episodes. There's lots to go into. It's a huge topic, but we're going to kick off today with a few quite important topics. And to help us, we've got some really cool guests. Ben, who are you? Where you come from?
I'm Ben. My pronouns are they, them. You've heard me on this podcast a couple of times before, but, you know, I'm hoping to take a lead with this LGBTQ plus miniseries. So look forward to seeing me a little bit more. I work with Oxfordshire Youth, and that's all there really is about me.
That's interesting enough. Megan, who are you? Where you come from? Oh.
I'm Megan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Ben's childhood friend. I've been invited on today. Hi.
It's okay. Molly.
I'm Molly. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work with Art T down in Cowley, and I met Ben when we were all locked together in a manor house to learn leadership.
I have many questions about how locking people in a house teaches leadership, but I'm sure there's four.
Oh,
it did. Was it kind of a Lord of the Flies deal where one of you took leadership, the other one ate a kid at some point? That's cool. Well,
we were the only two that came out alive, so we're here now.
Spectacular survival. That's good. It works for you. KJ, hello.
Hi, I'm KJ. I use Z and they pronouns. I know Ben from school. They're pretty cool. We did like drama clubs together for a couple of years, RIP. And yeah, I am just very gay.
That's what we like to hear.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a relative idiot when it comes to LGBTQ plus, the history of it. I consider myself an ally, but in terms of the depth of information that is available out there, I'm not that well versed, I must admit. I understand pronouns, I understand gender identity, sexual identity, and I'm accepting of all. However, there is a lot that I don't understand. So for this, I'm going to hand over to Ben, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to learn, and I'm looking forward to hearing some experiences. So Ben, please do take it away.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I think the first thing that happens when you become a part of the LGBTQ plus community is coming out. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I think first, if people are comfortable sharing their coming out stories, I think that'd be great. Just because I think it gives a good feeling of what it's like. I feel a lot of people,
some personal experiences, because I guess there's a lot of people in the world who are struggling to come to terms with their identity, either gender, sexual, whatever it may be. And I think modern days, hearing other people's stories and how other people have come out can actually be really helpful. So yeah, that's a really good idea, Ben. Why don't you kick it off, Ben, if you're comfortable to do so?
I'm cool with that. So I'm pansexual. With my sexuality, I never really came out. That's the thing. I kind of just decided, I was bisexual at first. I kind of just decided one day, and then I was like, I'm gonna slip this into conversation and see if people notices. I wasn't exactly brave about it, you might say. But then it just kind of, there was never one point where I just came out for that, which was interesting. But with being non-binary, I did come out because I thought I kind of want people to use they them pronouns with me. And if I don't come out, no one's gonna know. And I went for what I call the strategy of just kind of saying it, just kind of going up to someone and saying, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Then going into a side room and then just saying it. I haven't found a good strategy yet. I'm going to be honest with you.
Is there a good
Felt that.
strategy? Or is it just let the world know and let the world deal with it?
I don't know. I'm a big fan of over text because that's so much.
Oh God, yeah.
Less
Text is just stunning.
Yeah. You get used to it though. Like I'm pretty good at saying it now. But the first time I came out as non-binary, I talked to my friend. I was talking to a friend and I said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And then I kind of avoided the topic for like a minute before actually saying anything. It was not my proudest moment. But yeah, that's how it went for me.
Would you say that you struggled to come out at all? Did you say that there was ever anything that kind of blocked you to getting to that point of being comfortable saying it out loud?
I would say that, yes. I never thought I was uncomfortable with other people knowing. I've always been pretty comfortable with other people. I don't really mind if they judge me, and I think I'm in a pretty accepting community anyway. I think the barrier for me was more I wasn't certain of what I was myself. It was more I don't want to come out and then be like find out that I'm not that. Which of course now I've developed a bit. I've realized that coming out and then deciding that you're not whatever you say you are is fine. Exploration is good. But at the time I was very afraid.
I think that's quite relatable for a lot of people within the community, the people I've spoken to. And as a straight white male, I don't think I ever realized until I started speaking to people how much people struggle with kind of coming to terms with it in themselves, because it's reasonably well accepted. It's nowhere near as accepted as it should be in the major world, but it's more accepted than it has been in the past, which means, I guess, like you said, coming out to people isn't the struggle. It's coming out to yourself and being very certain of that yourself. Megan, how about you? How about your story of entering the community?
So I'm asexual and aromantic, and I figured the aromantic part out way later. So
and for like I said, for a relative beginner, I know what asexual means. Aromantic is a slightly more vague term. Please explain.
Yeah, so a lot of people haven't heard the term, and that's understandable. So asexual means, in general, it means experiencing little to no sexual attraction to people. And there's also romantic attraction, which is a separate thing. So a lot of asexual people can still fall in love. A lot of aromantic people can still want sexual relationships. Being ace and aro, which is the abbreviations, means I'm not sexually or romantically attracted to anyone.
Okay.
And figuring out I was asexual I thought I was bi for a little bit, because I thought, oh, I'm as attracted to women as I am men. So, and then I was like, oh, that's 0%. Okay, what is that? Let's Google it. And I found the term. I remember I wasn't okay with it. I was like, oh, I'm going to be alone. I was very sad about it. So I came up to my friends pretty quickly as a kind of, no, let's power through to the self-acceptance part at the end of the film. Let's go, power through. And I had some very bad friends at the time. They were not very nice about it. They made a lot of jokes about it. But my current friends, a majority of them, we all kind of came out at the same time as something. So that's a nicer environment. But yeah, figuring out I was ace, I thought, okay, that doesn't mean I will be alone, because asexual people can fall in love. And then a few years later, I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that either. So that was difficult. But at this point, I'm really happy with it. I'm not just okay with it. I really am happy with it, but it does take a while. So like, I feel like coming out to yourself is like the first step, like acknowledge, looking up terms and being okay with it. And I regret rushing into telling everyone. I kind of wish I'd waited till I was more happy with myself. That's something.
Yeah, being sure of yourself before, well, like Ben said, in case you change your mind. But from what I understand from gender and sexuality, very much moving targets.
I think so, yeah.
These things can change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think being okay with change as well is the next big step.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of understanding that it's okay to change, but I think personally, it's like if someone else came up to me and they said I feel like I want to change, I'd be like, cool. But it's like almost with myself, I have different standards. I feel, which I don't think it's very fair on myself, but I think it's just that kind of mental gap that I think a lot of us have to overcome.
Well, sometimes the person you're hardest on is yourself. It's always the way with most people, I think.
Again, I didn't really have kind of a coming out experience. Secondary school was an interesting experience, and it felt like everyone knew before I did. So I was getting bullied for being gay before I knew I was gay. So new coming out to all secondary school kids.
Yeah, it's a scary place at any age. I think I'm more scared of secondary school people than I was when I was in secondary school. If that makes sense.
Teenagers are scary.
Teenagers are terrifying.
But
anyway, sorry.
That's okay. My first experience with the LGBT plus community was I went to a wedding with two of my mum's friends, and they were both women and they were getting married, and everyone was really chill with that. And I thought, oh, file that away as a potential option. Get married to girl. Went throughout my whole life completely denying it. It's fine. I like men, and then it was when I got to secondary school and I was like, I don't like men, and this isn't okay. So again, it was kind of like just criticizing myself. So everyone else who's gay is perfect and beautiful, and that's fine, but I'm filthy and disgusting. And if I look at women, that's a sin. But if they look at women, that's absolutely fine. And I love and support them, but I'm gross.
This is interesting, actually. I've come across this a couple of times because I did a weird little sub episode that was nothing to do with the Oxfordshire Youth podcast. It's just me, and it's a TikToker. And she is bisexual, and she spoke about the issue of internalized homophobia. Not homophobia outwards, as in a hatred of gay people, a problem with your own sexuality because it is part of the LGBT plus. And she grew up as a Christian. She grew up in the church, loved the church. She was, straight for many years. And then when she realized that she was bisexual, she struggled with that for a long time because of her upbringing, because of what she described as internalized homophobia, but not an outwardly homophobic thing, which I didn't understand, because to me, homophobia means really terrible, outwardly facing hatred of gay people.
Yeah.
So would you say that's something you experienced as well? Not an outwardly hatred of people of the LGBTQ plus community, an issue with yourself?
Definitely within myself. So I'd grown up in such an accepting family, and I saw people in the LGBT community all the time, and they were all beautiful and valid, but it was me that was a problem.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, on my dad's side, my dad's side of the family is Russian, so I'm quite thankful that I never had to come out to my Russian grandmother, because I would have been sent back to Russia same day shipping. But other than that, everyone else has been chill.
And I guess, yeah, there are definitely certain parts of the world, certain parts of every community almost that still have that sense of like it's again, it's an upbringing thing. I think a lot of people who have grown up around, you know, there is a huge subsection of society that grew up in a time where being gay was physically illegal. And whilst they might not think it's awful because they grew up like that, it's always going to be at the back of their mind like that. And, you know, it's episodes like this, it's projects like this that are aiming to change that. So it's always nice to see. But like I say, Russia is one of those countries that really needs to dig its way out of the Stone Age, really.
Yeah.
So finally, KJ,
Hi.
would you like to tell us about your experience?
Absolutely. So I've come out as like just a lot of things, and I've been wrong many times. I've come out as pansexual, gender fluid, asexual. I thought I was bi at one point. That was like right at the start of even figuring out what I was. So at this point, being wrong isn't really a fear of mine, because I'm just kind of like, okay, I guess that's a thing now. I first like properly came out to multiple people as pansexual. And like coming out to my friends was absolutely fine. Like it was not a big deal at all. But my parents was just so terrifying. I remember I just did it in the worst way possible. I was just like sat on my bed crying my eyes out, and they were like, dude, it's not even that big of a deal, please calm down. So that was a whole time. My gender, I genuinely don't know a specific time when I like came out as non-binary, which is what I currently identify as. I think I just sort of dropped hints here and there, and everyone picked up on it. I remember like I told my mum that I wanted to use a different name and pronouns, and I just started pestering my family whenever they got it wrong. And it like, yeah, at this point, coming out is not a big deal at all, because if someone doesn't accept me, I'm like, okay, don't talk to me then.
Okay, bye.
Because I think like what helped me so much was that I was in such an accepting community from the start. Like my girlfriend has been out as pan since like year 8, and I always knew that there was like someone there that was like me. And I think that what really kickstarted my questioning experience was just going on YouTube and starting to see all of these like gay YouTubers, and just thinking that I might be like that. I don't think I've really ever had any internalized homophobia towards myself. I think maybe at the start.
Have you always been quite confident in who you've been at that point in time? Obviously, like say, it changes, and things do change with time. Everything changes.
Yeah.
So have you always been quite confident in yourself about who you are and how you want to identify?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I'll just come out as, if I feel really strongly one way, I'll come out, and then maybe 2 weeks or months or even years later, I'll figure out I'm wrong and I'll come out again. And it's really never been a big deal for me. And I don't really come out that publicly to most people. Like, if I want people to know my pronouns, I'll tell them my pronouns. But I'm not going to go into a whole like big thing, because it's it's like important to me, but it's not that big of a deal to me, honestly. Like, it's just there.
That's fair.
Pronoun thing for me is really interesting because, and I noticed it, I starkly noticed it at the start of this meeting, because I introduced myself first and I just said, "Hi, I'm Sam." It's never occurred to me. And I actually started noticing it in meetings a little while ago. So at my old job, I started noticing, so I changed my email header to have my pronouns in it, because I noticed so many people were doing it. And it was really great to see, because I'd heard from my friends in the LGBT plus community about how important it is to normalize not just assuming pronouns. And I think by kind of making this kind of, and like you say, it's reminding people when they're wrong, not in a way that's kind of attacking them because of it, but just, I understand this might be difficult to get to, but this is what we're aiming for. This is what's important. So that's really interesting to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So that's thank you so much everyone for sharing that. Ben, I'm going to go back to you.
Yeah, cool. I just there was something that you said. You were talking about coming out to your parents, and I thought I would bring up as something that I thought of when you brought that up. For me personally, it was kind of difficult to get it done, but I found it a lot easier to come out to my friends than I did to figures of authority. I guess like my parents, and because I'm not going to come out to the schoolers like pansexual, because I don't feel a need to do that, but I wanted to come out as non-binary to my school because I wanted, if possible, teachers to use they them pronouns with me. I think the experience of coming out to figures of authority was really nerve-wracking for me, and I was just wondering if other people have had similar experiences, if you've done that.
So when I came out to my parents, my mum was very like, "Oh, okay, cool," and my dad was like, "That's called nothing," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks."
Yikes.
And he told me like, "Oh, you're probably a late bloomer. Don't worry about it. You're only 16." I'm like, "I'm 16.
You're too young to know that."
But
Oh my
the
God.
funniest thing is, when I was 18, me and him were in the car, and I was talking. So I have this friendship with someone where we call each other wives, and we're both asero. And it's like bordering on the line of romantic, but not actually planning on being in a relationship. And I was just talking about her, and my dad was like, "Oh, are you still asexual?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, I guess you didn't grow out of it." And he believed me because I'm 18 now, so I guess I'm old enough to know who I am. Now I'm legally old enough to buy my own alcohol. That's when you know. But yeah, that was kind of funny. I'm glad he came around. But yeah, he wasn't ever angry about it. It was just like, "Oh no, you're not." And I'm like,
So how much do you think age plays a role in these things? Do you think there's certain ages where people feel more confident to come out because they feel like people will be more accepted? Like you say, your dad didn't accept it until you were 18. Do you think that plays a role in a lot of coming out stories? People are afraid to come out sooner because they feel like they're too young and they won't be accepted because of it.
I imagine for other identities it'd be different, but with being asexual, it's often very like, well, everyone's that, and then you figure it out. So he's very much like, "Oh, you just haven't figured it out yet." He wasn't angry or like refusing to accept anything. He just thought it just hasn't happened for you yet. But I can't speak for other identities. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
I was going to say, KJ and Ben, as two, as gender identifying people, do you think that age, and particularly puberty plays a role in whether or not people will accept you? Do you think as you're going through puberty and you question your gender identity and come out as a different gender identity than your birth, do you think that plays a role, those different stages in life?
Well, I can't speak from like personal experience since I've been like pretty well accepted, but like there's just a lot of ignorance about trans kids, like proper young trans kids, and like I think the main concern over it is, you know, like physical transition and stuff, because, you know, it's big changes and stuff. But I don't think people realize that no one's doing that to a young child. So there's really no need to be worried.
Is it 16 or 18 for hormone blockers? I had a friend who transitioned a year ago. And I
think it's 18.
I think
well,
I think you can go on hormone blockers a lot sooner.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, puberty blockers aren't going to do much after 16.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
So,
yeah.
Like transition hormones, I think that's I think it's 16, but I'm not sure.
The information and all of the links to this will, by the way, will be in the bio of this podcast. So that's interesting, because I think I noticed a lot of people who had been quite confident in who they were, and it's almost to the point that we all knew that these people were identified differently, but they didn't come out until sixth form. And I wonder if that is the age thing playing a role, almost, that you have to be a certain age before you can be sure of who you are. But in reality, it's like you were saying earlier, KJ, nobody really knows who they are. Things change. Things always change, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think something we need to normalize is like the exploration for a young age, but also that just because someone is exploring doesn't mean that what they're currently identifying as, you just because someone might change doesn't mean you shouldn't respect what they are at the moment. Like, it's, you know, be open to them changing, but don't feel like it's a necessary, like it's a thing that has to happen.
If I walk into a room wearing a nice t-shirt and I say, I like my t-shirt, I'm wearing this t-shirt today, and someone says, nice t-shirt. If I walk in the next day in a different t-shirt, is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, I've
oversimplifying major issues.
Yeah, I've heard of like a really good analogy for identities that I'm totally just gonna steal from this person.
Go for it.
But basically, identities are like shoe sizes. Like, you can go from a size 5 to like a size 7, but that doesn't mean you weren't exactly, and it doesn't mean that when you're a size 5 you weren't valid.
I like that.
Like, yeah. Thank you, Miles McKenna.
I think sometimes you do need to almost oversimplify very complex issues, and I'll be quite open in saying I sometimes don't understand gender identities, but I'm accepting of it because I understand that this is how people feel, and that's okay, because, you know, people are always you always validate people's emotions, whether it's sadness, happiness, whatever. Why can't we do the same for their gender identity, for their sexual identity?
Yeah.
Although there are quite a few these days. That's the only thing I think. There are so many different groups these days. And I'd like to ask an open question to the community. Do you prefer being in a smaller category within a larger community than just some overall term? Big question time.
Yeah.
I think labels are just a whole hot mess in general, but I think it's really down to the person. You can't tell everyone that they have to micro-label themselves or put them in put themselves in a big category.
Yeah, I think because some people, as Katie said, some people do enjoy like looking through all of the different things and then picking one out that precisely matches them.
Mm.
I'm kind of like that. I do like having a label that's pretty precise, but I also know some people who are like, I don't want a label on me. I just don't like someone I know, they're part of the LGBT community, but they say they don't know what label they are, and they're okay with that. They know what pronouns they're using, so it's, you know,
I think
they're comfortably unlabeled is, I think, how they would describe it.
I think what I've realised recently is that until it's entirely normalised that gender is a moving target, sexuality is a moving target, labels are important because it helps people realise that there are different people out there. Without labels, it would just be like looking at another person and expecting them to be like you. Until we normalise that everyone's different, but that's okay, labels are important to help people realise why people are different, why they are this certain way. And that is my big topic for today. And I'm now going to hand back to Ben.
I mean, I feel like I've talked a bit. Does anyone else have anything that they want to add on to that?
I guess I quite like having a label or two labels even, because it comes with a subset community. So I love being part of the LGBTQ plus community. I love that we all fight for each other and stand together, because heteronormativity and cis normativity is just, that's what we have in common. That's a bit of an issue. But it's also nice to find the people for having a word that relate to what I've experienced. Like seeing stuff like, oh, aromantics who are extroverts must be dying inside. I see that meme and I'm like, oh my God, it's just like things where people think stuff of you and you feel like, oh, I don't know what I think of myself. And then you find these relatable things and it's like, oh, I'm understanding myself because other people have gone through this. So that's why I quite like labels. But I know a lot of people don't want to like waste energy figuring out the precise science. They just want to be themselves. So
would you say that it's been like a really big help to you using that label to find other people who have been through similar situations, and that's helped you move forward on your journey more rather than just saying, I'm something, we'll deal with it at a later stage?
Yeah,
that's really cool. Yeah,
I think also something earlier, I don't remember what you said exactly, but you said something along the lines of you don't remember all of the labels. Sorry for paraphrasing, Sam.
No. Honestly, that is in broad terms. I love hearing about people's stories, and I've heard so many different. I used to work with somebody called Dr. Clara Barker at the University of Oxford. She is a transgender scientist who is really leading the charge for normalizing LGBT plus communities within science, within education, and particularly within higher education, where it's very much a bunch of old white men sat on their bottoms on big piles of money. And it's the simplest way I can put it, and therefore the hierarchy follows quite closely behind it. Clara is an absolute genius at simplifying things like gender identity, sexual identity for those who that's the thing, being a straight white male. I find myself apologizing on behalf of other straight white males all the time because we are the worst. B, I find myself constantly wanting to hear from experiences, constantly wanting to hear from how, and having it simplified, because I've never experienced things like coming out. I've never experienced things like, questioning my own gender identity. Therefore, having it simplified is really helpful because it means I can be more understanding towards people when they explain it to me for the first time.
Yeah.
Having that overview. And it is, and she actually went through the different at the time, the different identities and the different flags that they had, and there was so many. I remember just being and looking at this PowerPoint slide and just go, whoa, And
Yeah.
it's a little bit terrifying, honestly, because I'm so scared of upsetting someone, of misgendering someone.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think it's everyone else can give their opinion on this as well. I think from what I've learned in the community is that they don't expect people to know all of everything there is to know. As someone as part of the community, I don't know everything there is to know. I think what's more important is, as you said, the understanding of people's experiences and the general acceptance. Although I do think something, while you don't need to know every term, I think something that's important is that we start getting like the major terms out there to people, so people know how to talk about it, even if they're just talking about the large brush, like the large picture. They're able to talk about the community. What does everyone think about that?
I mean, I think we need to normalize like asking people their identities and stuff, and we need to normalize not assuming based on appearance, because that's like so hurtful to some people. Like asking pronouns has been a great step that people have started to take recently. And yeah, like you said, I don't expect everyone to know everything. I don't even know everything, and I've been doing research on this for years and seeing so many identities. Like there's so many out there, and just education is so important, really. That's the bottom line of it all.
It's awesome. I think that's a really nice point to end on, actually, that you don't have to know everything. Just be open, listen to people, learn what you can. Unless, Ben, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Not particularly. I mean, we could talk about this for hours, I'm sure.
I think we could. I really think we could.
But I don't want to keep people up all night long.
But what about our thousands of eager listeners, Ben, who are expecting? No, I'm joking. There's many more episodes to come for this series, so don't worry. There's a lot to do. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank, firstly, Ben for putting this all together. You'll be hearing a lot more from Ben over this series. They've done a fantastic job of bringing this all together, bringing people together, creating some fantastic topics. I'm really excited to see what they can bring for the rest of the series. I'm not going to be here for the next episode. Darius will be taking back over. I'd also like to thank our amazing guests, Megan, Molly, KJ. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been genuinely so interesting to hear about all of your experiences, to hear about, what's been going on, what you think people can learn from your experiences. It's been really enlightening, and I've really enjoyed it. I've had a great time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anything anyone would like to shout out? Any projects anyone's working on that they want to publicize? This is your chance.
Yes, here's a point. When you came out, or as you were struggling or enjoying your time in exploring your gender identity, your sexual identity, what did you find most helpful? Tips, resources, websites? Molly, I know you mentioned YouTube.
YouTube.
Let's hear some.
Anyone,
is it just YouTube?
anyone who thinks they might be asexual or aromantic, I highly suggest looking at Aven, AVEN. You can ask questions and you can see people's questions. It's all anonymous, and it was really helpful to me, and it's been helpful to a lot of people. So or if you just want to learn about it, go on to Aven. It's a good website.
It might just be me that likes. Well, I have a weird thing about talking to people, but talking to as many people in the LGBT community. So if there's a pride parade near where you are, if you just go down to that and start chatting to random people. It might just be because I'm fascinated with people and experiences, but hop on social media and go find as many people in the LGBT community as you can and ask questions and just learn things.
Yeah. I mean, social media is like just so perfect because you can find just about anyone who has had at least a similar experience to you. The amount of YouTubers that I just found when I was questioning who have shaped like my whole life has been insane. Just find people you relate to, really.
This is a side note. It seems to be a common theme among LGBT people, but did anyone else take those "Am I gay" quizzes online?
Oh yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Brilliant. Once again, thank you so much. That's it. I've been Sam. These have been my wonderful guests, and this has been another episode of the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. Thank you for listening. Come again next time.